After 35 years in the powder coating industry, this expert knows a thing or two about problem solving. He's worked as a consultant with coaters around the world. He takes a hands-on, common-sense approach to today's discussion on who's calling the shots for us in this industry. For instance, what do we call ourselves? Should we be forging manifest destiny to the industry, or should we continue to strive for our own unique individual path? Could the industry workforce problem be solved through inclusiveness and diversity within the custom coater community? We troubleshoot some real-world problems as we ponder our identity, workforce and training, and our development as a whole with potential outcomes for the future. Get ready to level up your powder coater game.
Welcome to Roscoe's Powder Coater Podcast. I'm your co-host, Kim Scott, where we interview influencers and talk about trending topics so you can grow your powder coating biz. Today's episode is sort of a continuation on what we've been talking about from episodes 55 and 56, which is kind of the state of the industry. Where are we now? Where have we come from? And where are we going in the future, especially in custom coating? Are we creating a cult of disinformation through social media and following Instagrammers or influencers? Are they giving us the wrong information? Why isn't the greater industry sharing more information for us so that we can learn faster, grow faster? Why is it so hard to get that information? Are road coders and automotive influencers influencing the marketplace too much for our customers? And are there just too many newbies popping up near you, thinking they're going to take your business away from you or challenging you, or, are you just a whiny professional that can't stand the competition? Today's guest was on an episode that generated the most downloads in 2022. Terry Peterson is a consultant for the powder coating industry, and I love the fact that he is boots on the ground. Nobody knows anything more than he does, and he has been and done and seen it all. So, Terry, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Kim. Good to talk to you again. And I like the intro, but I don't know if I know it all. I don't know if I've seen it all, but there's been a few things that I probably come across that have been strange in the past. But yeah, thank you. Good talk to you.
Yeah, it's always good. And I guess I'm in those groups on Facebook, and a lot of times you have to proclaim that you're a professional. So I'm just here to let you know that I've got my magic wand out here, and I deemed you. Just in case you're claiming yourself a self-proclaimed professional in the consultant industry, I'm just here to just knight you and tell you that yes, you do know more, and you are not sharing disinformation. So just wanted to share that with you. You are fully knighted on the
disinformation.
show.
That's a term that can probably go away pretty soon. But yeah, I remember in the past, a professional was always somebody that came in from out of town that had slides and a notebook, and that deemed them a professional. So I guess that's kind of, I don't know about the slides anymore, but pictures and notebook are probably my main.
Right. And, so let's, for those that haven't listened to episode 5, let's go into a little bit of your background just to kind of refresh everybody's. But you've been in business, or you were in the powder coating industry, or have been for the last 35 years. So tell us how it got started and where you're at now. How did you get it?
Well, it started out about 35 years ago. I was a painting contractor, and I heard of this new finishing entity that was coming about called powder coating, and I just jumped into it both feet. Bought an oven, bought a gun, had no idea what I was doing, and actually just started doing it. And for about 6 months, I just destroyed about everything I touched. So that's kind of a lot of my background. But then I blossomed into a custom shop, ran that for close to 30 years, 28 years, somewhere around there. Had a number of employees, went back to myself, had a number of employees again, did a lot of custom work. And when it came to the end, I was just at the point where I didn't want to deal with the day-to-day heat in the summer and dealing with the customer aspects and so on and so forth. And I'd been helping a lot of people throughout the years because I was really about the only coder in the Midwest for the longest time. You talk about folks starting up down the street and people being nervous. I used to get nervous when somebody started up a state away from me because it was so thin at the time with the amount of work. And I just figured when I sold my business, I would see if I could help some folks, and it's just kind of blossomed into a nice little entity where, yes, I am kind of an unusual consultant in the fact that I do go in, I do work with people hands-on. I will help them design systems and work with them on equipment and give them advice that way. But for the most part, it's training, it's working with them with their difficult situations, and so on and so forth. And I work with everything from mom and pop organizations all the way up to aerospace industry customers. So I've got a smattering of quite a few things over the last number of years. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I think it's great. And that's what I've come to realize is that you either have people like yourself that are willing to share, willing to help. And then there's these other guys that will either to a degree or don't want, or is still kind of just, not interested in helping anybody because they think their secrets will be taken away or, whatever, or their business will be taken away. And I think that's just natural. I remember being a paint coder here when I wanted to get into furniture refinishing and stuff like that. And it was pretty much the same kind of attitude, although it was mostly like, I'm not going to share anything with you. You're on your own kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm not stupid. I can learn this myself. Right. So, I guess it's just something that just happens in any industry. I don't think it's exclusive to powder coating, but it just makes it especially difficult because for people to get into this market, just because there isn't a lot of readily available information for someone to jump into this industry. So it just makes it really hard.
I hear what you're saying there. Now, there's a lot of information, but there's really not a lot of concise information. And that's where it becomes difficult, I think, for people. A lot of times I see folks jumping into the business and instantly they're looking for advice. They're looking for help. And I'm kind of a firm believer that you really need to trial and error and kind of work through things yourself and get a feel for what you're doing before you're reaching out to folks. Because down the road, it's a good thing if you need some advice, but there's so many different sources of guns now and people building their own ovens and the way they heat and the way the guns operate and atmospheric situations that they're in. Powders are not the same company to company and line to line. So you see all kinds of information being thrown around, and it sometimes it frustrates me because I want to go, what is your situation? What is your specific situation that we can deal with? It may not be what the fella is that you're talking with, their situation is. So, it's not apples to apples all the time. And it sometimes, as I said before, it gets a little frustrating, and I want to just jump through the screen and help them, but it's not always that easy.
And it's true that every shop is unique. And I think that that's kind of part of I think there's a twofold problem too, is is that, it's not easy to learn it, but also when you go on social media or you see people, influencers in the market on Instagram or whatever, and you get inspired by them, because I'm certainly inspired by them when I follow them on Instagram and stuff. You don't know their methods. And so I think the mystique where a lot of the disinformation happens or starts is when you see an influencer or you see somebody with so many followers or whatever, and you see their work and it's just exceptional. It's glorious looking, on the screen. People they just see that person has arrived in the marketplace, but they don't see the behind the story kind of thing. I mean, some of what we're trying to do here on the show is uncover those stories and share those stories of custom coders.
Right.
To let people know that it kind of, took them a long time. What you see today is not it sort of started more humbly than that. And I think that that's kind of part of the problem, especially with new guys. They see all this blingy stuff on Instagram and they think, oh, I can do that,
Exactly. And you know what, they probably can with time and with more experience. And yes, there are a number of coders out there that I've followed and watched that do exceptional work, absolutely good. And I know for a fact they didn't develop that technique or develop that finish overnight. I know they didn't, because a lot of what folks are doing now with the custom wheel work and the custom two color lay-ons and so on and so forth, and then introducing the ceramics into it, that takes time to figure out how to do that and how to make it work. And yes, now a lot of people want to just jump in and say, hey, I can do it. Yeah, you can, but you just want to kind of shake them a little bit and go, it's going to take you time. Be patient. You right. So yeah, you're right.
It's, it's funny because I just attended a webinar with, I guess, the CEO or president of PPG, talking about OEM coatings and the future of OEM coatings and how to create paints that are more eco-friendly and yet can continue to be, I guess, quickly applied, or, to keep productivity going faster on these cars, right, as they're producing these cars and stuff like that. And yet, and here was the head guy over at PPG talking about, it's nice to be able to present these OEM type coatings that they're trying to develop in the marketplace to become more greener applicators. But when you start introducing two tones, which is what is quite popular, that kind of presents a bit more of a problem, right? Because that's kind of where this is going. I mean, these chrome coating guys are under pressure. And so it's going to be, less and less availability of getting chrome coated rims, or, they're kind of pressing down on that part of the business. And so paint coatings and powder coatings are going to kind of be growing in that sense. And so I think there'll be less and less chrome rims out there just in terms of availability. And so it's going to lean more towards these two-tone effects and stuff like that. I think that's definitely going to be a trend that's staying. I don't know if you agree with me or not on that, but
well, I do, and you've seen so much of it, lately with the manufacturers and their custom wheels that they offer. They're more color keyed than they are color coded. Black being most popular, but there are others out there. So people are looking for something different. So the two-tone, yes, and I do think you're seeing much more aluminum being used, and that poses a whole other issue in protecting the alloys and so on and so forth. But that's probably why you're seeing more and why people are trying to stretch it a little bit. And thankfully, some fellows have come up with some great ways of dealing with this versus the old hand wipe method that I used to use.
Yeah, I
years
know.
ago.
We just interviewed Scott Coates, who's developed some products for that. That was the last episode we produced.
Right.
And, he really has a great story. I encourage everybody to go over there and listen to that podcast because, that's kind of towards the end of the show, we started talking about his beginnings and stuff. And what you see today is, not how it started. And he was uniquely poised, right? And that's, I think what I like about his story is that he was uniquely poised to create these new inventions. And really maybe the message today, as if you were thinking about getting more into the custom coder industry or starting a business or continuing on and growing in this business, is to look back at your background and utilize your background to make you a unique custom coder. And that's exactly what Scott did. I had no idea. And that's why I asked him the question, like, how do you this with that, and he kind of laid that out. And I think that that's kind of the message. I think that's certainly what Ross and I have done, particularly with the patinas that we've created and stuff like that. And that's how you and I got started, because I reached out to you to see what you thought of these finishes and stuff. We had no clue what we were, if these were even going to work and stuff. And that's how I found out about you. And you were only one of two people to talk to me that were actually, available to talk to in terms of consulting, Yeah, so we definitely need more consultants out there for sure.
Well, I think we do. I think there are a lot of situations where folks that are in need of help, of consultants, are either nervous to reach out. They don't realize, it's hard to put your finger on. I'm seeing more and more now corporations that are reaching out, companies that are reaching out because of their mass coding lines that they have, that they're having problems with. They need somebody hands-on, not so much, the smaller entities. Now, I don't know why, because the smaller entities, well, I'm sure they don't have a lot of finances to spend in having somebody work with them. Not that I'm all that expensive, but it does cost. But there are other ways of doing it too. You can do it via the internet. I can look at things. I'm a big one on getting back to some of the situations that people run into. You've got to see you've got to look at it. You've got to understand what they're dealing with, what their shop is. You see so many pictures on there, and fellows will go, or ladies will go, what's wrong? Well, I have no idea other than it's not right. We need more background. So, yeah, we probably do need some more hands-on consultants out there to kind of broaden the industry a little bit and get people a little more interested or familiar with what we're doing.
I think for me, like, too, is what are, I've heard so many different names people call us, as, I call it custom coder or custom coding. I've heard trade coders. I have heard home pros. I've heard, what else have I heard? I've heard garage coders. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's important for us to kind of all get together and call ourselves something. And then otherwise the industry is just going to call us whatever they want to call us, right? And I feel like that's part of why we call it the voice of custom coding, because if we don't have a voice, or we don't, call ourselves something, where will we be? Because we'll just be manipulated by the greater industry, or the people that are, calling us these names, right?
Right.
I don't know how you feel about that, or if a name is really worth anything to you, but
Well, and we talked about this before. There are so many names out there, and I think initially what the shop themselves or the owner, when they start up or they're into this for a while, they have to decide themselves what their market is going to be, and then whether they be, as I call a lot of them, artistic coders. Again, like you and Ross with your patinas, that's art, and some of the work that these fellas and ladies are doing with the two-tone and three-color setups and so on and so forth, that's really art. It's more artistic.
Yeah.
And then you've got people that want to do that, but they really want to do, job shop work too. So it's kind of hard to lump them into. So I think they really have to portray to folks who they are and what market they're going after. And then there are always the ones that want to just get anything, to do. And I can understand that. You're trying to pay back on the equipment you just spent money on. But
right.
So to label it, you can't label them custom coders because custom coders are really more than that. Job shops, that's a little bit larger entity, I think. And that really, the custom coder falls more into the job shop type situation where they are doing more manual coding, but they are doing some custom work. That's a good one, Kim. I don't know what, I've thought about this. I don't know what you'd label these folks as, but I think they do need to figure out where their marketplace is at and maybe start conveying whatever their product is, and more of their verbiage than right. Trying to label the whole group per se. I don't know if you can. Really don't.
I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult. And I think that, we seem to have waves of guys starting and then stopping, and then another wave comes in and stuff like that. I think my biggest understanding of it right now at this point, okay, is that the influencers and like the greater industry people that represent the greater group of professional powder coating, okay, today, they love talking or writing articles about generational coders that have made it, right? Oh, third generation line coder, or look at these people over here. They've been in business since, 1979 or something like that, right? And it's, right. And then, of course, when you read within the story of the person, there's always this, they started in the garage, or they started with just mom and pop, or they started with 2 sons or whatever, mom, a father and a son or something like that. Now they're built this business up to this and that level or whatever. And that's always the story. It's a general story. I'm generalizing. But I think it's funny how they always love talking about those humble beginnings and yet ignore the current custom coder today. They right. love talking about this, about how they made it, but they don't necessarily write articles to custom coders, or they don't necessarily address our market in their magazines or their blog posts or their or their acknowledgments in any way.
Right.
Right. And that is sort of frustrating to me. I think it's because we're so small, so micro, that maybe it's hard to kind of rate or analyze us as a group. Mm-hmm. I always kind of dream of the fact that maybe if we got all together, we could have a greater voice and have a bigger influence in the market. But that's, could be a pipe dream of mine. I don't know. Do you see that happening? Am I making stuff up, or, I get.
No. I see what you're talking about. And they're always more willing to want to write or discuss, the people that have made it big and gone from, as you said, maybe they're a small shop or their garage, and now they've got 4 or 5 lines running, and they're doing work for a number of OEMs and so on and so forth. And that's wonderful. I mean, it really is. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But there's a whole different time frame that's involved in what they've done. But I do believe that a lot of the we'll just stick to it. Custom coders, they've come a long ways too. They've come a long ways, and you're right. I do think somebody who wants to express more interest or more background on these folks need to write about them or bring it forward, because folks have started from a little zip gun to a little kitchen oven, and they've progressed into a very nice shop, and they do absolutely gorgeous work, and they're sought out by people because of it. So I think, again, yeah, you're right. I think that needs to be portrayed more in the industry, and I think that will probably help, and it may drive more folks to work down that line too, to move that type of entity where they're doing more fine work and custom work and
well, I mean, this kind of leads back into the whole workforce problem that we're facing, right? Or lack of workforce. And so, when I, in episode 55, when I just had with, Kevin from PCI, we kind of lightly touched on the subject of where they think they're going to be getting people into the workforce. And, his thought was, well, we'll just go to the colleges and we'll offer these classes and we'll talk to those people. And it's like, no, we don't need any more college graduates. Okay. There's too many people with degrees and not enough people to do the hard laborious work of, brooding out a coding business in the coding business. And, my thought is why not, why can't the workforce come from these custom coding shops? They're the ones that are, there's a lot of us out there. Why can't we create a more regional, my thought today is, maybe we make regional training shops, job shops, they're still doing jobs, right? You have to have hands-on job projects to work on to even train. It's just one of those kinds of businesses that you have to learn. You can't just be reading a manual and going, okay, I know how to do it now.
Right.
And,
right.
They do offer their classes, 101 and 102 or something like that. And it's a pretty strenuous class. It's pretty long and strenuous. And of course you get a book with it. And the manual that they have is extensive, and I've read through it, and it's a pretty good manual. So there's that, but you really do need training centers in order to teach people the right way. And then they go off, say they grow up in these custom coder shops and they grow up to either own their own business or go into other, regular employee type situations in bigger job shops. I don't know. That's just some of my thought. It's like, well, why can't you just reach out into the industry that's already there, particularly the custom coder, arena, since those people are more diverse and more spread out through the country. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only negative I see with that is that obviously folks that have good employees and good people don't want to lose them. Yeah, so, that's kind of a double-edged sword. That way,
yeah, it is.
Getting people enticed into it. And again, in all the years that I had my shop and I've worked with other businesses and trying to help them bring employees in and train and so on and so forth, it's not easy. I don't know if there's a magic wand. I think somebody really just has to get the spark when they start working with somebody to say, yeah, I want to learn more. I want to do more. I'd like to have my own shop someday, and learn as much as they can. Unfortunately, that shop loses somebody because of that. But I don't know how else, we bring folks in. A lot of it has to do with who you're working for, your employer. employer-employee relationship, that type of thing. We can get into that in other discussions, but it's not easy. And I've seen this year after year after year with folks, and how difficult it is for people to find people, and not only just the custom coders or the job shops, but the larger operations trying to find somebody, just somebody to come in and labor to hang parts and unhang parts and package things. How difficult it is. So, I wish I had an answer for that, Kim.
Well, fortunately, I have a magic wand, so no.
Keep waving it, maybe something.
We'll just
I'm willing to work with as many people as possible and help their employees and so on and so forth. That's about all that I can really.
Yeah, because it seems like what's happening now, what I'm seeing now is that individuals are, this just came out recently on one of the Facebook groups. Somebody put out, "Hey, I have a course." Wasn't us. It was just somebody. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was like, it was like, it started off as, "Hey, that's great, good for you," to all the way to, "Hey, didn't you just start in this business? How are you doing a course now?" Right? You're not a 30-year professional, so please don't say that you are. So, it's like damned if you do and damned if you don't. I'm surprised that we haven't gotten more, I guess, flack from people by being bold enough to have a podcast, And if you love the podcast, we do have, I know we've got a lot of fans out there, and I want to say thank you to the fans too. I'm happy that we haven't gotten a lot of flack, maybe because we're trying to bring in professionals like yourself to everybody that comes on the show is an expert. I'm not, I'm putting my 2 cents in just based on the people that I've talked to in the last 2 years, 3 years. That's all I can do, right? But I feel bad for the guys that are trying to go out and do a course, or, it takes a lot of effort to put out a course. I don't know how good they are. I've never checked them out. I know of one guy that we're working with today in the UK market, where, he's got a course. Of course, it's, that's most of his experience has been in the UK and the EU, but, so it's based around that. He shared some slides with me and stuff, and it's technical because that's his background, right? So I just wish there was some way to kind of magically create a course that was interactive, or, maybe we should just get together more as a group and create our own course too. Maybe more voices is better than just one guy out there like, "I'm going to create a course and charge $100 or whatever to learn my system," when it's so hard. Every shop is different.
I do like your idea about getting a group of people together. It would be great if within that group you had a few places that felt comfortable enough that they'd be willing to have people come in to their business and have folks take a course or spend a day or two working with them or seeing how that business operates. You're stepping on kind of thin ice there in some situations, but again, getting back to working on things in somebody's shop with their own equipment, their own way of doing it, their own equipment, their own parts, and so on and so forth. That's really the only way that I've ever found to have people really learn what they're doing. So if you had them come into another custom shop, somebody's willing to do that, at least they would get more of a hands-on feel for how it actually operates. The phone rings, customers coming in,
hands-on,
and how they market, and so on and so forth. There's a lot that goes into it, and of course, sitting in a classroom, I don't know. I don't think you really. I've had more people say to me over the years, we sent people here, we sent people there, but they really didn't get anything out of it. And that's why we have you. Not again why they have, but they said that's why we have you coming in to sit back, watch folks, see what they're doing, and kind of help them work through it a little bit better. But yeah, I'm not a big one on the courses.
It's hard. It's so hard, you know. It continues to kind of just gnaw at me sometimes, you know. Well, let's see what else. I think we've kind of, you know, we're talking about this gap in training. Where are we going to get this workforce? You know, we've recently hired someone full time. You've probably seen him walking back and forth. You know, he's doing okay. I think that, you know, he's, he has a lot of just mechanical experience already. So I think that kind of helps with the training. But still, there's a lot to learn about, especially when you get into restoration work, you know.
Right. Oh, yes.
You know, so, you know, fingers crossed, wave that magic wand, you know, that things are going to hang in there for him and he's going to hang around and stuff. You know, I hope it works. We certainly need to build our team this year. That's my goal. And, you know, we'll see how it goes. You know, we're doing the best. Ross is doing the best he can to kind of keep him going and stuff. We had some recent upgrades in our equipment and have completed most of those. Although we had a big upset last week where our dust collector went down and we got kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because we'd already ordered a new one, but the old one died before the new one's here. And so we're scrambling to try to find a used one just to kind of get it going, you know, and not keep us going so that, you know, because we had tons of stuff to blast. So they spent 3 days trying to jerry rig or hack you know, like a Frankenstein model of, you know, a little bit of this,
right.
That was just 3 days of wasted labor, both on Ross's part and our employees' part, you know, and it was just like, so just frustrating, you know. So Ross ended up hopping on a plane on Friday to another island to go pick up a new one, albeit like not a 3 horsepower one, not the bigger one that we bought. That's still somewhere on the boat somewhere in the middle of the Pacific. So that rarely happens to us, but we really got caught with our pants down, so to speak, with the timing of this vital piece of equipment, especially during this like really big architectural job that's kind of flowing in. And, you know, it was so, but in the end, I think it's worked out because now we've got the little one hooked up now. And we thought we would just turn around as soon as the bigger one gets here. We thought, oh, we'll just sell it on Craigslist. Somebody will buy it or whatever, because it's pretty much going to be brand new. But now we're thinking, hey, why not add that one to the front of the, you know, to the front end or one end of the blast booth, and then add the bigger one to the back end, right? So we'll have more suction, more cleaner air, better conditions overall. So I think that's what we're, you know, in the end, we're going to come out on top because we're making a better system. So it seems like it'll work out in the end, although we'll have some credit card payments to pay for a while, you know?
Yeah, no, again, that brings back a lot of memories, but it all comes with experience. And again, nothing ever breaks when you have downtime. It never does. It always goes down when you have the busiest. I had my oven once go down on me. A shaft spun out on it. I had a huge 3-inch shaft in the blower motor on my oven, and this thing went out on me. And oh my God, to try and find a machinist to recut that thing because and it was right in the middle of busy season. So I understand completely.
It's so stressful. I can only imagine. I mean, it was, you know, I think the only thing that came closest to, you know, with this was when the crisis happened with the chemical, you know, the stripper, not being able to get stripper and almost running out of it. You know, like I think we were down to like, our last 5-gallon or something like that, right? Before we got our shipment in. And, I never thought about that till it was happening, during the whole supply chain problem. And it's like, damn, if we can't strip, we can't do jobs, right? We can't do, everyday jobs that people have money and cash, and, it's like cash flow coming in every day doing rims
Exactly.
or stripping somebody's stuff or blasting somebody's stuff, whatever. It's like, wow, I never thought about it until we didn't have it, right? Or couldn't get it. And that's when you really start to think, whoa, I need to be better prepared for the future, So let's talk about what does a consultant cost? Let's talk about, can we talk about your side of the business for a minute?
Yeah, sure. That's fine. Cost wise, it can run. I mean, my basic charges are $125 an hour. But then again, that depends on if I'm going out to a site, how many hours I'm going to be spending. If I'm going to be spending days, there's obviously, in a lot of cases, there's travel and travel expenses in there that come into play. But again, if I'm dealing with somebody over the internet or trying to work with them that way, I typically try and set up a pay schedule for them, depending on where their business is at financially,
right,
to help them out. Corporations, a whole different story. They'll pay the full nut. It's not a problem. But smaller folks, always try and work with them to help them out a little bit better. But no, a lot of it's done via pictures. A lot of it's done via video, online, because travel is expensive, and you don't always have to be somewhere unless we do get to a point where you physically have to go out there and do it. We're going to be doing a visit to a company out in South Dakota here in the next month or two that we've been talking to for a while. So I've been on the road a lot lately. I've done more of the internet work, but yeah, I mean, that's basically how it runs. And again, getting back to the basis of my business, I do a lot of problem solving is really what it comes down to. I mean, I've had everything from people call me and go, my gun's not working. And I'll say, okay, let's take it apart. Let's see where you're at, all the way up to, I can't get this powder to stick. And we work through their issues on that. And most of it's pretty basic, but it's just a matter of educating the customer as to where they need to be and understanding in the process. So,
yeah, I think that's, kind of why we started the podcast. A lot of people, I've been on, now I'm getting to be the guest on people's shows. That's sort of a new twist for me. I'm going to be on a couple of different other podcasts.
Well, it's good.
Yeah, and that,
marketing.
Kind of new in a different, just in a different point. I'm the one asking the questions, right? So to be asked the question has sort of been different for me, but, I think that's kind of, where I've been just pondering things, because people are sending me questions to answer, or how did you get started, or, whatever with the podcast. And I think that, gave me some time to think, how it got started. And, obviously you were one of the first guests we had and stuff like that, back, way back at the beginning, but the thing is, I felt like I was calling it a Cinderella complex, because I felt like there was these people that had all the knowledge and information that I didn't have. And they were in some big white castle, right? And it's like, I need to get into the castle there to get that information or that knowledge that I'm seeking. I mean, we knew enough just from doing the day-to-day stuff, but what was it that we didn't know, right? That kind of was what our impetus was. What was there out there that we didn't know about the industry, about the people in the industry, about other people sharing their stories and stuff like that. So that's kind of been I think we were also very poised to start the podcast because
Definitely.
we had already accomplished a lot in social media and blogging, and we had a different perspective than most people, and stuff like that. I hope to continue to do the podcast, as long as we've got stuff to talk about and can cover. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface on the people in the industry, so I hope to have a lot more, and just go with the flow as far as our journey and other people's journeys and what's coming up subject wise.
And again, I think that's the best way. And you've really always had this in your craw. I mean, we've been talking for a couple of years. I mean, this goes back, maybe 3 years. I guess we've been talking with each other now, on and off, and working with the patina and so on and so forth. But you've always been good about asking questions and asking, and if that person doesn't know, at least they can put you on to somebody else, and I put you on to some folks to talk with, and that's how you learn. That's really how you learn. That's how I learned back in the beginning, because there really wasn't anybody back then, so it was really having to source folks. But ask questions, like you've done, general questions about the industry, about where the industry is going, how powders are made, why are there differences between one powder and the other, things like that. Not so much how much should I charge this person to do this wheel. I don't mean that type of thing. Talking about more of the internal technical type things. So you've always been good about that. That's where you've gotten. Plus, this is in your bailiwick, Kim. You've always had this marketing digital thing that you've been very, very good at, and I commend you for it. Something I've
just
never
curious.
been that good at. Well,
I guess I'm just curious, probably for my own good, as you know, because before we started the show, I told you Ross and I were like, yelling at each other this morning, because it's not perfect here in Maui, but we have our ups and downs, being and working together as a couple. It can be a little intense, but thanks so much for coming on today. It was it was time. It was totally time for you to come back on the show, Terry.
Well, I appreciate it, Kim, and it's great talking with you always. And, if you ever need anything, you can always pick up the phone or send me an email or send me a text or whatever it might be. That. I thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being part of this growing community, and having the attitude that sharing is not a crime,
No, it's not. It's not a crime. No.
All right. Well, that concludes our episode interview with Terry, State of the Industry. Thanks for joining us today. If you get a chance, be sure to like, subscribe. I got to do this corny stuff at the end of the show. I hate it, but we're on YouTube, so follow the show on YouTube, but we're all on all kinds of platforms that you listen to when you're listening to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff. So thanks again for coming on the show, Terry. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Aloha.
Take care.